Welcome back to the Forging Alpha podcast. Caleb and Rick here, and we are talking about fitness, nutrition, lifestyle, and everything that goes into living a great life and leveling up.
Yeah, what does a great life look like?
Man, I think it's making progress and going after whatever it is that you think is going to make you happy.
That's a little ambiguous. I don't know if I buy that marketing spiel.
What would you define a great life as?
What? I think that's a little bit different for everybody, but I think there's certain trends, right? Fulfillment-wise. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like a great life. I mean, right? I guess faith, family, finance, fitness. If you're missing a lot of those things, or many of those, or a couple of them, it's probably not going to be a great life if you're struggling in one way or the other. I think it's probably across the board having multiple of those buckets filled, or all those buckets filled to some extent.
Yeah, you got to fill them up. Just like your table analogy, you don't want to be a two-sided table. That's not going to stand up very well. So
No.
you can't just be jacked driving a nice car. You also got to have the everything else that goes with it.
Exactly. So I think that'd be the definition. You got to be a Renaissance man.
A renaissance, man. I like that.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a missing theme in today's life. And I don't know why it is. I think it's probably multiple of things. But like, you look at maybe like your grandpa's age group and stuff. Like, I look at my grandpa, like a dude that was a logger, that was a vet, but also like wore a tailored suit to church every single Sunday and like groomed himself, but was like completely blue collar and like wrote poetry and like did art, but then like literally did all the wiring in his house and like did roofing and like built saunas and stuff in his house and
Do a
could
little
do
bit
it
of
all.
everything.
Little bit of everything.
That it seems like that would create a more interesting experience.
I feel like just being a more interesting person, for sure. That's something that I think, as I look up to, like a lot of the gurus and like Alex Hormozy and stuff, like there's a lot of great things within that given realm of life, but also like I wouldn't want to necessarily be Alex Hormozy, living in a closet, just working 15 hours a day, every single day. You know, like it's great for like what you're trying to learn from him, but I'm like, I don't want to follow Alex Hormozy for what he's doing for the rest of his life.
And that's almost like kind of a downside to social media, though, is like people will get a lot of influence for having a certain narrative on one subject or be known for one thing. And it almost puts themselves in an echo chamber of like, now it feels like that one thing is kind of their identity, so to speak.
And it's a tough thing, I think, being in this space where you're focusing on self-improvement and developing and stuff, that it's probably easy to like not live life or have fun. Like I noticed that it's really easy, like those are the first things to slip. And then when I start thinking back on, in 50 years, like what I'm going to be thinking back on, it's probably not learning more about ads or more coaching clients and running a business and stuff. It's,
man, especially like the climate that we're going through right now, as far as what's happening with AI, like even what I've done in the last 15, 17 years, whatever, I've been running a camera and doing like Photoshop stuff, graphic design. Like I put a lot of time into that type of skill set, a very tactile skill set that now has completely changed, whether it's just done entirely by AI or at least the process has changed so much that I think some people get caught up in the weeds a little too much with like tactile information, and they don't spend as much time thinking about theories and philosophically.
yeah.
Because it's going to change fast. So if you're just focused on that all the time, eventually you can miss what's going on around you in different markets.
Especially if you're not like utilizing those things that can then take it off your plate so you can be more of a creative or, be writing or doing certain things, Yeah, because I think about those things and like I want to do cool shit and like look back on my life and have like experiences, be known for something. Like I look at a lot of I like a lot of old writers like Ernest Hemingway. You familiar too much with him, with his life?
I've at least heard the name, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's got well known for his books like Old Man and the Sea and stuff. But like he was a veteran, like did a bunch of stuff during World War II. He was a competitive boxer. He loved to ski. He spent portions of the year like in Jamaica, in Africa, and safaris. He had a home in Idaho where he'd spend all the winter skiing. And would just like live all over the globe, literally just doing his writing, but would like just live a very full and complete life while also being known as like one of the best writers of his time, you know, and it wasn't like just locking himself away in a studio writing all the time. Like he was literally out on hunting safaris and then doing skiing expeditions and like boxing matches and like in Spain running with the bulls and yeah, doing a lot of cool stuff too at the same time.
Yeah, you can't keep just doing the thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times those inspirations that people talk about or the great idea that clicks is that happens when you're not just doing the thing all the time.
It's so counterintuitive, but you know, I just got back from a week in Jamaica and it's 100% the case, you know, just like sitting there trying to relax, trying to get my brain to relax, but then like different ideas start popping in that you just do not get when you're in the motion of things, like going and doing it. And it's amazing once you get there, but I just fight that struggle of taking time to do that. Like I haven't had a week vacation since last July when we're in Montana, you know, like I've just been on the gas pedal since for the entire year.
Yeah.
You know, and it always makes me think like I just need to do it. And, you know, we're good about the weekend trips, kind of gotten away from those, but having that kind of North Star of like, that's what I'm trying to get my life to and building career around that. And it honestly makes things better. So, you know, getting rid of those limiting thoughts, knowing that those things, like you need to live your life along the way where you're just going to get to the end of it. And it's like, cool, you worked and maybe you built something big, but at the same time, like, did you take any of those relationships with you along the way? You know, because I guarantee on your deathbed, you're not thinking about half of those things that you did to get to a certain point.
Because also the big thing that you built, if you built something big, it's gone anyways.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be gone in 100 years at least.
Yeah.
So that part doesn't really matter. So you might as well live what you consider to be a good life and enjoy it while you're here.
Along the way, 100%. Because I don't know about you, but I really don't have aspirations of like getting to retirement.
I don't either. The concept doesn't make sense to me.
No.
As far as the idea of being able to do what you want, of course. You want to be able to do what you want when you want, but I'm always going to be building something or making progress in something. So the idea of like, hey, let's retire at 35 and then just go sit on the beach for the rest of our lives, that doesn't sound very fun.
Or even at like 65. And that's,
even
I think,
65.
Where the concept of like living your life along the way comes in is like, the retirement age isn't getting any younger. It's only getting older as, right, the buying power of the dollar goes down. It's going to take more to retire, quote unquote. People are living longer, so that retirement age is getting older. But at the same token, are you going to want to do a lot of those things that you have aspirations to do when you're 72? You're probably just going to want to sit at home half of the time, but then you're going to pass up the most capable years, energy, and physically of your life just focusing on the building portion, you know? So it's that Tim Ferriss theory of like doing mini retirements throughout life, like where you know, when you're 30, be able to go take a month and go do something across Europe or build your life in a way where you're essentially getting experiences while doing that. Because I'm building towards something that I can do for the rest of my life, because I just don't foresee it being very fulfilling or very likely that you're going to get to that end point and just want to retire and sit on the beach and just enjoy it while letting your health go and your physicality go, letting experiences while you're younger completely pass you by. It just doesn't resonate. And that doesn't mean like, you know, not be investing money and like, you know, setting myself up for later in life. But the concept of like this end point of retiring, man, it just doesn't appeal to me.
I'm in the same boat with you, man.
There was this guy I was sitting next to on the plane coming back from Jamaica, and he was a welder. You know, he was coming back to Kansas City from a job, and he's usually on for like, I think he's like a couple months on, 3 weeks off. And he was just talking about, he's like, man, yeah, I can't wait to just retire from this someday. You know, he probably has another 15, 20 years to go, but he just, it didn't seem like that was, I mean, he's like, you know, I need to consider a career change and X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, man, like you got to do what you got to do. But if you're not kind of working towards maybe something better and you're just like, this is what I'm going to do, I got to push through it till retirement. I feel like it's like a slow death of your soul.
Yeah. And it's like, not only that, but depending on what their situation is, like there's a good chance they're raising kids that are watching you go through that, doing what you don't want to do. And then that's the exact lesson that you're going to teach your kids is, hey, you're just going to have to suffer through life doing what you don't want to do because you got to make ends meet. Like depending on their situation, there's almost always a better way that you could do it. And for some reason, people just get into the flow of doing things, and then they're just, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing for the next 10, 20 years. I just got to stick it in and follow the path.
How much of that do you think, though, is also like limiting beliefs and the fear or like the safety net analogy and the fear of that they're going to fall on their face if there's change?
Probably all of it.
Yeah.
I would imagine. I think that's really the only thing that holds us back, right? Just the limiting beliefs that you have in your head, the thoughts of what if.
Yeah. I was having this conversation with my mom because she was talking about how, especially her generation was like we came from a very small town where like that's what you did. Like you grew up, you got a job. For hers, it was like, the pinnacle was going to college, coming out, and then you got a career with that. And like, that's then the things that like we were passed down and learning. But one, I think that like the old generation too, of like, they're so stuck in their ways of like, that's the ideal. And even with like college and stuff now of like, if you don't go to college, you're going to be like, you're going to be a nobody. Like you had a generation that just graduated and then went to work. And then so for their kids, like the pinnacle was going to college. But now like we're at a point where it's swinging back the other way because like you're going to go get $100,000 into debt to come out and work a $30,000, $40,000 job and be literally paying that off for the rest of your life. When, if you wanted to start a business anyway, again, like you were talking about, like there's so many opportunities, like there's so many people now that you could go find the person that's doing exactly what you want to do with a successful business. You could pay a quarter of what you're going to pay for college, go do mentorship underneath them. Like I think about like, had I started a business, and I don't regret going to college because of baseball and playing sports and experience, like that was the thing. But if I was just going to school and thinking back of like, if I would have taken that and started my business and gotten into like an education and found mentors earlier on, like where would I have been with those 4 years from the
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can time collapse the time it takes you to make the progress or learn the lessons that you'd have to learn yourself, or hopefully learn yourself if you ever made it to that point.
100%.
If you can survive long enough to make it there. But if you can time collapse a lot of that stuff and just learn from somebody. So they say, hey, don't step there, maybe do this. That's going to save you a lot of time.
Because unless you're going to school to be a doctor, a lawyer, working in the healthcare system, man, like you're not going to come out and just be guaranteed a good career and have that. And I'd say for any young guys that are listening, like, get over that fear of not going to college, because essentially college for most people just turns into 4 years of socialization, drinking, and partying at the end of the day.
Hopefully you get some good connections out of it.
Hopefully you get some good connections, but how many people actually do?
I didn't.
Yeah. How many people are you still friends with from college?
Not very many.
Yeah. I mean, you can say the same thing for high school. Like
100%.
you got to go, do the certain things. But there's 16, and there's a couple guys I follow on Instagram now. They're high ticket closers. There's a 17-year-old that's doing $107,000 in commissions per month, and he's 17 years old. Like where's that kid going to be at when he's 30? And so doing those things and starting now when there's literally so much opportunity in today's age, it's a way better position to bet on yourself and go all in. But at the same time, like it's not easy to. And that's just human nature though, too, I think.
It is. And not even in this guy's case though, like maybe it's not even like being a business owner, but you're probably going to be able to find a job that you don't hate, right?
Yeah, by starting and going through that shit-eating process earlier than not.
Yeah, and like just because you're working at one place, if you hate it, there's probably other places out there.
Yeah, which again, I think that too, most people will go into something and just stick with it because maybe there's some safety net and light at the end of the tunnel, and completely sacrifice in the wrong way to accomplish that goal. But at the same time, they're also sacrificing their mental well-being, their health, and then all for what? something that you're going to hand back at the end of your life anyway. And that doesn't mean like, yeah, go make money doing something, but yeah, this attachment to doing things just because like that's what you got your degree in, or that's what you should be doing, or maybe you've worked there for the last decade. I think it's just a human nature thing.
So part of that, I think, is getting caught into that loop of, like we've talked about before, getting in the flow of doing things, and you never really take your head out of the weeds to examine your situation and decide what you should do differently. And
do you think that, I wonder that though, it's an interesting conversation. Like, is it that, or do people realize how much it sucks, but the jump to doing something bigger, like, is just so daunting that they don't even want to approach that?
That comes down to a belief though, right? They have some type of a limiting belief that they're not able to do it, or they're afraid of it for some reason.
Yeah.
What I was going to talk about, though, is we alluded to it earlier when you had the week-long vacation. It gives you time to relax. And we've talked about that before, and it seems like that's when those moments of inspiration come.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started, so I changed a couple things in my routine in the last like week or so. So one, I've cut out energy drinks.
Okay.
So I have been doing pre-workout in the morning and then 2 energy drinks throughout the day. So somewhere around like 700 milligrams of caffeine and then whatever other nootropics are in there. And I've kind of, thinking back, just been on 1 or 2 energy drinks a day for probably like the last 7 years. I would imagine, like or 5 years or whatever it's been since we originally started at the gyms, and they were just always available, always drinking energy drinks. So the couple things that I've done, one, I started listening to a binaural beats hypnosis in the mornings. So it's the first thing that I do when I get up. And then 2, not drinking energy drinks. And I think what the hypnosis and all that study that I've been doing on kind of how I feel like our brains work reminded me of how much I used to like kind of daydream and sit in the silence when I was younger. And I didn't realize how much energy that gives me. So I don't know if that's the way that I experience anxiety. And when I sit in the silence like when you're totally relaxed, whether it's through listening to meditation or sitting long enough that you kind of can totally let go of the outside world and calm your inner mind. Since I've been doing that this week, my head's been way more clear. And my perception of time has changed as well. So I don't know if that's because of the racing thoughts of anxiety, but it felt like I've always got something that I need to be doing. It felt like always on, always on, always on. And now since I've been doing, like I said, I've changed a couple of things, so I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but I feel like I'm way more capable of catching those thought patterns. And then 2, by relaxing and being like in the moment, just way more present, able to connect.
Yeah.
Which is also going to make you more productive because I'm more creative. I have more energy behind what I'm doing as well.
Yeah, dude. Amazing. Amazing.
So I'm going to keep doing that. I'll probably bring energy drinks back in at some point because I don't think it was energy drinks alone, because I wouldn't want to demonize them by saying, oh, I changed this and then all these things changed.
Yeah.
But I think it's just like being able to train that awareness. You're able to catch the thought loops, and then you're able to not be thinking the same thing that you think every single day.
Yeah. I think that some type of mental checkpoint is big. Something we do in Jason's group, and I'm getting better about doing both of them. But one, there's like a morning reflection where like you're looking at like what's the story you're telling yourself in any given category: faith, family, finance, fitness. Like what's the thought process going through your head? Like what are the actual facts about the situation? Not just what you're feeling, but like what are the facts of the situation about what's actually going on, what you can do about it, and then what's the new story that you're going to tell yourself based on the facts, and then going from there. And then at the end of the day, the daily win map, where you're mapping out exactly what happened at the beginning of your day, middle of your day, end of your day, factually, like what actually got done, and then tomorrow, like what actually needs to get done based on that. And so it's kind of like a reflection system where like you got the thing set up for what you're doing the next day. It's kind of your roadmap, and also like you're reflecting on that thought process of what are you telling yourself in the morning? What's that story? Because inevitably Like just human nature always goes to the survival mechanism, negative thought patterns, limiting beliefs. And so I think that some type of system where you've got an objective evaluation of your mindset and the thought patterns is big, because if we don't, I think that, we're always going to go to that natural inclination, which the human brain is not built for success, finding positivity in most things, or like a productive mindset, right? An abundance mindset. So I think I don't know if there's a super successful person that doesn't have some type of a reflection system.
Yeah, reflection is huge.
Yeah. It's, and all this stuff kind of intertwines, and I feel like I notice it more just with like human dynamics and human beings, and like watching and seeing how people operate. Like even being on vacation, stupid example, but for like the things during the entertainment night when people get called up to come do some things, like the feeling of being uncomfortable and like going and being exposed right in front of a crowd. 90% of people did not want to do that. So, you'd go up there and like everybody's nervous, and so like that's just kind of a theme for life, right? Changing careers, putting yourself on display for something, like it just completely goes against what our default mindset is as human beings. And so I feel like you got to have some type of reflection system for that. And it's big. But it's interesting too, like noticing things about yourself and then just everybody around you, because so many people are just default mode 24/7.
And part of that, it's the world that we live in. I mean, it's social media's phones, constant news, all the distraction and noise that's out there. It makes it even more difficult for us to disconnect from stuff.
100%. Or have the confidence to do that. I mean, dude, like think about the last, let's say 50 years. There's been a crisis going on in the world forever. And literally like the point of the news is to make other people's problems your problems. And so if you don't have boundaries of that, you don't have some type of filtering system of what's coming into your life and your world, energy-wise, consumption-wise, like you're just going to have other people's problems being made to be your own until eternity, right?
Yeah, and that kind of bakes into like that's the perspective. If all you're listening to is negative news and stuff, which is kind of what the news is, that bakes into how you see the world.
Oh yeah, I mean, whatever you focus on, you're going to look for more of that. One thing I like to always tell clients is, I want you to look around the room and find me everything that's green in this room. And they're going to look around the room and they're going to do that. I'm like, all right, now tell me everything that you saw that was red. And like they weren't focusing on anything that was red, so like they can't tell me about that. And that goes for positive things you're looking for in life, opportunities. Like whatever you're focusing on, you will find more of those things in life.
Yeah, man. That pretty much what?
How's your training going?
My training's going pretty well. I think the furthest run so far is 6 miles.
Nice.
It was feeling good. We're going to be doing a fun workout tomorrow, getting a little bit of not a high rocks simulation, but more of like just high rocks feel, transitioning from running to another movement. And for the most part, I've been feeling good.
Good, dude. Heck yeah.
How was training on vacation?
Training
what does that
on
look like
vacation.
for you?
I got in a couple runs while I was there on the Curve treadmill. It was a good gym, actually.
It looked good on your stories.
Yeah, it was probably the one in Ochi with the metallic plates was pretty cool, but this was the most comprehensive one.
Okay.
I'd say. Stair climber, curved treadmill, rower, multiple machines like lat pull down, chest fly, chest press, cables, dumbbells only up to 50s, but they had kettlebells, mats, etc. So it was good. It had everything you needed for a vacation. So that was good. Got that in pretty much every single day. Sometimes it was like 15 minutes before dinner. Just going in and getting the blood moving, walking every single day, snorkeling trips, getting out and swimming. A lot of walking across the resort, so we just try to make the most out of our steps. And so like
plenty of steps when you're on the resort.
Plenty of steps when you're on the resort. So that was the main thing. And I'm more cognizant on these vacations of trying to pay attention to just feeling good every single day. Like not drinking so much all the time that I just get messed up, which, 5 years ago, like I would just start drinking all day at a Sandals resort. And even just like foods that sit well on my stomach so that like I want to be feeling good on vacation now. Still had some drinks and stuff, but I was like, I'm more on top of things like supplementation wise. Like I brought like my injectable NAD, and I was doing that. I brought melatonin so that I was getting good sleep. I was taking my supplements. I took digestive enzymes with me to every single meal. Trying to do like my higher carb stuff in the evenings when we were at dinner. Like I would usually get 2 entrees and then, keeping it more like fruit, fiber, protein for breakfasts. After every single meal, like going on a walk, doing that, trying to do the drinks more of like middle of the day, not as much in the evening times. First day there, like after getting off the plane, long travel, like I really didn't drink much the next day and I didn't really drink much the day before. So drank significantly less than I usually do on a resort vacation. And yeah, I mean, had a good time, enjoyed it, took supplements and stuff to make sure I was feeling good, try to get enough activity in, and also just, paying attention to like foods that I could enjoy, but also like sat well with me so I wasn't feeling like crap all the time.
That makes a big difference. I feel like the first couple times I went to a resort, I was like, all right, I'm here to eat. And I just go way over the top, and then you kind of feel like crap, and then you don't really want to be at the pool because you ate so much and you feel like crap, and then you're tired, and
it's funny too. Like now, like there was a couple mornings I had some champagne or mimosa, but like there's literally people that are there at 9 a.m. and they're already drinking, and they'll just keep that going all day, and you have unlimited variety of things, but like you have 12 strawberry daiquiris or pina coladas and have about 100 grams of sugar. Like, I don't imagine you're going to feel super great.
No, that sounds disgusting.
And your food choices are probably not going to be the most amazing. You wake up the next morning and you're not going to the buffet and getting smoked salmon and eggs and mangoes. You're going to go get bacon and stuff. So it's just kind of like this loop. And I feel like I noticed that a little bit more. Like I think I saw a total of like 3 people in the gym the entire time I was there. So
yeah, that's not very many people.
No. The other thing I will tell you though, this was like a distinguishing factor about this one. They had 12 pickleball courts.
12 pickleball courts.
And
that's
tennis,
impressive.
and tennis courts.
Were people out there playing?
Yeah. Okay. But not as much. Like there was one lane that was always taken up. There was not pickleball tournaments going on. Way more drinking.
Yeah.
That was happening.
That's kind of more what you're going to find there.
But yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like you just get to a certain point in life where even though you've got access to whatever you can drink and eat, like going on vacation, I just like feeling good. And so like if, I flirt the line a little bit, like I'm not going to not drink, but like it's a bigger priority for me than just trying to eat as much and all the foods that I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, you can still maintain your goals. You can still get right back on track and travel and go on your vacations. Like I've been on 5 flights in the past 7 weeks. So you can do a decent job still of things and make it happen.
Just the belief that you can do it.
Just the belief that you can, my friend.
Just the belief that you can, man. Just because everybody else isn't doing it, doesn't mean that's what you need to be doing.
No. Group mentality stuff, dude. Default mode.
If you don't want a life everybody else has, do something else.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I think about all I got for today's episode.
I think it's a wrap, my friend. Till next time.
Till next time.